I'm your teacher, Mr. Driver, and this is Graded for NXT and 205 Live, where I take a look at each show, segment by segment, break it down, and give each little bit a grade from A+ to F. We've had a pretty underwhelming couple of weeks of NXT and 205 Live. They've been alright, they've just not been like top tier level. So let's see what we've got this week. Hit the intro. And we're starting with 205 Live, as we always do, as my tie suggests. Yes, I'm going to keep mentioning the tie comments section. Stop getting annoyed about it. We are starting things off with Drew Gulak with Jack Gallagher at his side versus the Brian Kendrick with Akira Tozawa at his side. Hopefully this match is going to give this feud a little bit more fire, because obviously with Kendrick and Tozawa needing to prove themselves as a tag team, the main plot between Gulak, Gallagher and Kendrick's sort of been on the back burner. Either way, this one does start off quite slow, with Gulak working over Kendrick with a series of submissions, takedowns and strikes. Kendrick attempts for a full Nelson and instead opts for this sort of suplex, but it looks like Gulak lands on his face, and for a moment I was pretty sure that Kendrick was busted open, but it's just his beard and all the shadows. It just looked like blood. Gulak then gets on the reversal, settling into a one-legged Boston Crab after a powerbomb, but Kendrick manages to break it with a series of strikes. The pace then manages to pick up actually quite nicely, with the guys trading a series of blows, and it seems like a little bit of a battle before Kendrick can put Gulak on his arse. He then maintains this advantage with a submission attempt, and he gets that full Nelson he was looking for earlier. Kendrick then knocks Gulak to the outside, and it's weird because Akira Tozawa steps back, definitely has his hands up. Referee is sort of going, you know, I'm not going to get involved, not going to do anything, and then Gallagher preemptively strikes Tozawa, knocking him into the ring post and taking him out. This creates enough of a distraction for Kendrick to be able to hit sliced bread number 2, and just as he's about to cover Gulak for the 3, Gallagher storms the ring and commences the beatdown. Kendrick wins via DQ. Kendrick is then trapped in the Gulak, and it's really going a bit overboard. He's completely out cold, but Gulak is still wrenching it in. Tozawa jumps in to try and make the save, but Gallagher catches him, drives him into the corner with a series of strikes, and lays him out cold as well. I'm going to give this one a C+, just because with the guys involved, I was expecting a little bit more of a closer contest. You know, more near falls, a moodier atmosphere, and some real fire to push this storyline forward. It was an alright matchup, don't get me wrong, but it just wasn't what I was expecting, with the storyline sort of being put on the back burner so Tozawa and Kendrick could work together as a team. I just wanted a bit more fire here to really get me back on track with the storyline. We then go backstage to Drake Maverick, who's with Buddy Murphy. He lists off all of Buddy Murphy's achievements, says he's had a wonderful year, but then asks him about the rematch with Cedric. Murphy then cuts him off, and he says that he knows the score. Last week, it took 2 of them to put him away. He goes on to say that Cedric's not even on his radar. As far as he's concerned, Mustafa Ali is the much better wrestler, and if Cedric wants his match, he can have it next week. We then go back to the ring for Ariya Daivari versus local competitor. And after Daivari's like horrible, heinous behavior last week alongside Hideo Itami, this better be good. They start off by ruining the mystique of the local competitor. His name's actually Clay Roberts. Soon as that bell rings, Daivari stomps a mud hole immediately, drives him into the corner, and we cut backstage where Hideo Itami is watching sideways, as they all do, on a screen like this. He couldn't even see the telly. Daivari then lays in a series of slaps. He goes for the pin, could definitely have got the 3, but pulls Roberts up at 2. He then gets him back to his feet, and Roberts is all over the place, and he hits him with this heinous looking clothesline, pins him, but again pulls him up at 2. He then just repeatedly lays in the clotheslines over and over again, lifting him up to his feet and taking him out, lifting him up to his feet and taking him out, and then the referee stops the match. Ariya Daivari essentially wins against local jibber jobber Clay Roberts by knockout. I'm going to give this one a C-, and everybody knows my opinion on grading squashes. I don't think they should get more than a C, like exceptional. If it's like a really good squash where there's a lot of offense, maybe a C+, but I'm going to give this one a C- because I don't think it did as much as they think it did to showcase Daivari. After last week, I was expecting him to look like a vicious fighter, and they got a little bit of that across with the repeated clotheslines, with the pulling up at 2, not letting the guy lose with dignity. But I would have liked to have seen him throw the referee off and continue the beatdown, just really get across the viciousness of Daivari. We then go backstage, and it is Mustafa Ali in a pre-record, and he talks about how when you get knocked down, you get back up. He says he's rooting for Cedric in his match, but make no mistake, whoever is champion, when he comes a call in for his rematch, they're gonna have to bring bring their A game. We then keep it backstage and Cedric Alexander's being interviewed, and initially he seems a little bit butthurt about what Buddy Murphy said about Ali being the better wrestler. He then goes nah and then exposes Murphy for playing mind games. He's not going to play those games, he's just going to put him in his place. We then keep it backstage, although not really backstage, it's Noam Dar in a car. Dar looks very serious in this promo. He runs down Buddy Murphy for costing him the match against Tony Nese and then challenges him to a match to see who the better man is. Buddy Murphy has certainly got a lot of enemies on the 205 Live roster. We then go back to the ring and it's everybody's favourite Raw superstars, the Lucha House Party, and they're going to be taking on Mike Kanellis and TJ Perkins. It's a little bit strange. Nigel's like sort of semi-racist uncle at the wedding when he says they're fatuous, they're inane. Of course I can call them that with their limited vocabulary because they have no idea what I'm saying. Either way, they've got two Penelopes and they've got a big Santa sack full of things that they're throwing out to the crowd. Gran Metalik will not be here tonight as he's away in Chile at a WWE live event, which means no Lucha House Party rules, but commentary then break down the rules for one of my favourite stipulations going, the Tornado Tag Match. Lucha House Party start off quite strong and commentary are really pushing them as big stars for keeping the Revival at bay on Raw. Oh my god. We have some nice Lucha double team spots to kick things off and a huge dive from Lindsay to the outside. Things keep going back and forth, but what? Maria Kanellis has stolen a Penelope and she's holding it up and just showing it to Kalisto, who's on the apron about to do something, and then Kalisto decks it because he's been hit from behind. Maria then, I can't believe I'm having to read this out, some younger viewers should really shield their ears. Maria then stamps Penelope to death, first her skull, then her legs, then her body. Kalisto is distracted and decked, and Maria just continues to stamp on Penelope's lifeless corpse next to him, which means Lindsay's in the ring, getting double teamed. When Kalisto finally gets up, Mike manages to trip him off the barricade and he lands face first and takes a bit of it out. It looked a bit messy and strange. But while they're beating him down, Lindsay manages to find some fire, gets back to his feet, hits a handspring into a double elbow, and then Kalisto comes in to go one-on-one with TJP. TJP then locks in the submissions, he goes for an STF and starts yanking at Kalisto's mask. He then goes for a knee bar, and Kalisto is able to crawl very slowly to the rope. Kalisto then keeps both TJP and Mike Kanellis at bay before Lindsay makes his massive grand return off the top rope, and everything goes a bit mental. Lindsay hits his trio of moonsaults, but TJP makes the save at 2.9. Kalisto and Lindsay start hyping each other up, pushing each other in the chest. They want to take the match to the next level. Kalisto goes to the outside, gets the sack full of presents, comes back in, and what's inside as Lindsay pours it out? A load of tiny Penelopes. It then becomes a game of let's not fall on the Penelopes as if they're thumbtacks, but eventually TJP is driven to the top rope by Lucha House Party. Mike then tries to make the save, but he's ducked out by Kalisto, and they plant TJP straight through the Penelopes, and they go for the pin. Mike saves it at 2.9. Maria then tries to distract Kalisto with a full-size Penelope on the outside, shaking it in his face. He snatches it and just throws it off her head. He then hits TJP with a Salida del Sol, knocking Mike to the outside in the process, and then Lindsay hits his shooting star press, and they pick up the win. I'm going to give this one a B. It wasn't a bad match by any stretch. It was pretty entertaining, but my problem with it lies in the messiness. I get that it's part of the stipulation, but I thought the match going off the start was going to have some nice clean phases. It just slowly became more and more about the piñatas. I did love the tiny Penelopes though. We then cut backstage at the very end of the show. Again, it just feels like they forgot to slot it in. Tony Nese is delivering a promo about Cedric Alexander, and he's like, you're gonna have that rematch. No, you're not, because I'm gonna dismantle you first. You're not getting anywhere near Buddy Murphy. Credits. Overall, I think I'm going to give this week's episode of 205 Live a C+. I just feel like it was an episode of missed opportunities. I felt as though Daivari could have looked a hell of a lot meaner than he actually came out looking. I mean, he still came off looking horrible, but I really wanted them to push it to that next level. The opener wasn't quite what I was expecting, but hey, at least the main event was pretty entertaining. We now move on, as the yellow tie suggests, to NXT. Over the Then Now Forever opening, there is a ticker tape at the bottom with a little picture of Dynamite Kid, WWE passing on their condolences to his friends and family, and it was a nice little touch to start things off. We then get straight into the action at Full Sail, and we are kicking things off with Matt Riddle versus Punishment Martinez. They're letting him keep his name. And on top of that, he's got this weird, creepy entrance music, and I think it suits him perfectly. It could do with being a little bit louder, because it sort of seemed like he was walking out to almost silence. But, you know, they'll get it right. They'll get it right. It's the first time he's been out. It's fine. Commentary do a fantastic job of getting Martinez over as a monster. Somebody that was dragged up from the Bronx and fought every single day of his life. The pair immediately lock up, drive into the corner. Riddle allows a clean break, but immediately locks on a sleeper, which Martinez breaks, but then when they hit the floor, it's reapplied. Martinez then eats a lot of punishment from Matt Riddle before laying him out with a cyclone kick. Commentary continue through the match to put over the fact that Martinez also has martial arts experience, being somebody that was trained in Japan in karate, that his father would make him fight up to 6 people at once in practice, as well as the fact that his dad, who would make him do this, is not somebody to be messed with, as he once beat Chuck Norris in an exhibition match way back in the day. Riddle then drops Martinez, locks in the bro mission, and as he's sort of struggling to get out, lays in the slaps on the chest, and Martinez taps. And as Riddle's making his way up the ramp and everybody's going, yeah, yeah, there's a really loud cheer, so you know somebody else has come out. It's Cassius Ohno, and as Riddle turns around, lays him out, Riddle goes flying off the ramp and lies there. Ohno stands tall, Martinez still lying in the ring, Riddle on the floor. Nice. I'm going to give this one a B+. This is how Matt Riddle needs to be booked, like a machine that's able to adapt to any sort of offense thrown his way. It's just a shame that this win came at the expense of Martinez, who was debuting, but you know, he's still got some really good offense in, and I can't wait to see where they're going to take his character. We then go backstage to a pre-record with the little thing that says, earlier today, and Ricochet's there, and he's being asked all these questions by reporters holding up their little iPhones, and he goes, I didn't come to NXT to be the highlight reel, I came here to win. He then says he hasn't been pinned at any takeover, and he wants to continue that streak, and he's on his way to see William Regal to find out who his competitor's going to be next week in his North American Championship defense. And we then go back to the ring for Humberto Carrillo and Raul Mendoza versus the Forgotten Sons. It's our boys, Carrillo and Mendoza, from a few weeks ago, and they were so good, I cannot wait to see this match. We start things off with Cutler and Mendoza. Cutler obviously has the size and strength advantage over the smaller guy, but Mendoza is able to use his lucha-style offense to his advantage, running circles around him basically, and he manages to tag in Carrillo for some lucha double-team action. Blake manages to isolate Carrillo, but once again, the lucha-style offense proves to be a bit too much for the Forgotten Sons. Mendoza gets back in, and Blake finally is able to lay in the stomps. The Sons then go for some double team action, and they're able to just dismantle Mendoza piece by piece by piece. Blake and Carrillo get the tags, and the pace picks right back up. Carrillo then hits a handspring back elbow and a cool top rope arm drag and standing moonsault. It's just mental. Mendoza then goes for a dive, but he's cut off by Cutler, who just nails him in the face with a boot. He goes completely limp on the outside. The Sons then isolate Carrillo and hit him with a Scorpion Death Drop style combination to pick up the win. I'm going to give this one a B+. I really love Mendoza and Carrillo, and I'm really happy that the Sons are starting to look like a credible threat of a team. If there's anything that the NXT tag division needs, it's a jolt in the arm. We need more teams that look like credible threats, more teams that look like they can take the belts from the Undisputed Era. It can't just be War Raiders all the time. It needs to be more. We then go backstage, and Velveteen Dream is being interviewed by Kathy Kelly, but he's not quite himself. He doesn't know what to do, and then he turns around and he goes, hold on, and then he clicks his thumbs and all the lights go purple and his music starts, and now he's ready to be interviewed. He's asked what's going to happen with him next, and he responds by saying he's heard everybody talking about it on the internet, the locker room, people going up to Triple H. But in terms of what is actually coming next, and Kathy looks on all excited, he says, I'm leaving you, Kathy. And he walks out, clicks his thumbs, the lights go, the music stops, and Kathy looks all sad and alone. We then keep it backstage, and the Undisputed Era, mainly Bobby Fish, addresses EC3. Fish tells EC3, I'm not just any other guy, I'm the guy you've been warned about. How willing are you to step into the waters knowing that it's infested with sharks? Then as a whole, the Undisputed Era just run down the tag division, just saying there are no credible threats and they're the best. Yeah. And then it's not really a segment, but Mauro runs down Hansen's injuries after War Games. He's currently recovering from broken ribs, a ruptured spleen, and torn ligaments, and it's going to take some time for him to recover. We then go back to the ring for what is tonight's main event match, because the segment after isn't a match, but this is the last match of the night, so it's technically, I guess, the main event. Shayna Baszler versus Dakota Kai. So making good on a promise from last week, Kai is going to take it to Shayna, because obviously Kai in the past has been wronged, and Shayna has been taking the piss a bit recently, using her mates to help her win. When Shayna comes out though, she isn't alone tonight, not by a long stretch. She's with Jessamine Duke and Marina Shafir. Now there's a lot of history in this one. I don't know if you all remember, but Shayna's debut match was against Dakota Kai, and she smashed her arm to pieces with that jumpy stampy thing she does on the elbow and put Kai out for a long time. Baszler seems to get the upper hand of the impassioned Kai quite early on before eating a kick and peeling to the outside. Kai then jumps out and Baszler drives her knee into the ring post, goes back in the ring and leaves Kai out there for the count out. When Kai gets back in the ring, Baszler goes right back for the arm she broke before. She sets her up for the whole stampy elbowy thing, but Kai manages to pull her hand away just in time. Shayna then just starts playing with her. She's like poking her in the face with the toe of her foot before laying in this vicious kick to the side of Kai. Kai, working with one arm, then takes it back to Shayna. She's really selling the arm. I absolutely love it. She lays in a series of horrible looking kicks of her own before Shayna regains control. She then essentially goes for a coup de grace, a massive diving foot stomp, but Shayna kicks out a 2.9 before going back for that injured arm and driving her all the way up to the top rope. Kai then, out of desperation, headbutts Shayna off the turnbuckle, but it doesn't work. For her troubles, she gets kicked in the face and then gut-wrench suplexed off the turnbuckles. The desperation of Kai then sets in. She's just kicking Shayna in the face, just over and over again in the face. Shayna plays dead before Kai comes back through. Shayna locks in the Kirifuda clutch. Kai taps out, wins, no help from her friends. I say no help from her friends, that lasts for about 10 seconds until they all start stamping on Dakota in the ring, but who comes in to make the save? It's Io Shirai. She dumps Shayna, she dumps the other two, and then she sort of sets Shayna up in the corner so that Dakota Kai can go running at her with a massive knee, and then the other two horsewomen pull Shayna out of the ring, and then they all peel off and there's a bit of a weird stare down. I'm going to give this one an A-. I am a massive, massive fan of Shayna Baszler. I think she's a natural. I think she's such a credible threat with her friends at her side. And then you've got Dakota Kai, who's able to just bring it to such a level in higher profile matches. I thought this was a wonderful match and it showcases just how strong NXT's women's division is. We then go back to the ring for the final part of tonight's show, Tommaso Ciampa's in-ring segment. Ciampa then says he's NXT's MVP, but nobody believes him. Not the fans, not the voice of NXT, and he points at Mauro and he goes, "But mamma mia, here I am." Ciampa says that his NXT title reign will go down in history. He's not the flavor of the week, he's not the flavor of the month, he is the real deal. He's then cut off by Aleister Black. Black gets in the ring with a mic and he says that he absolved Johnny Gargano of his sins that Ciampa created, and he calls him a puppet master. He tells Ciampa he's a fraud and that he's full of original sin, and that he's going to absolve that sin at NXT TakeOver Phoenix when they have their rematch. He's invoked his rematch clause. But then just as he says it, just as the word clause leaves his mouth, who cuts them off but Johnny Gargano? Gargano gets in Black's face. He keeps calling him Al, which is really weird, but he gets in Black's face and tells him that it's not over, it's only over when Johnny says it's over. Ciampa then quite comedically says, "I love when you leave Johnny wrestling in the back and you come out here all Johnny badass." Ciampa understands that Black wants his rematch, but thinks that there's still some unfinished business between both him and Johnny Gargano. Now it gets a bit quotey from here, so I'm going to be reading, but Johnny says that he's Johnny wrestling and he's not scared. Black then cuts him off and screams, "Johnny wrestling is dead. I showed you mercy. Now that is done, I will fight you anywhere, even in the parking lot." And then Johnny goes, "How did that work out for you last time?" Oh, it's so good. So yeah, Johnny says, "How did the parking lot work out for you last time? I put you on the shelf for 3 months. Black then, incensed with rage, goes for a black mass, but Johnny peels out of the ring, backward rolling out, and Black's just stood there seething. And who else is he going to kick but Ciampa? Just decks Ciampa. Ciampa drops. It was great. I'm going to give this segment an A. The whole Puppet Master thing's really cool. Ciampa pulling the strings on Johnny is awesome. And this cage match it's just going to be beyond anything I think that we expect it to be. There's a real fire burning between Black and Gargano, and with them being the most credible threats for the belt, I love that Ciampa is just using them to weaken each other so he can extend his reign. But what am I going to give NXT overall this week? Well, if you look at the averages, I think I'm going to have to give it an A-. It was a solid episode, no weak matches, a lot of setup, a lot of fun things on the horizon. I think this was a great little episode of NXT. So with that said, I have been Sam from Cultaholic.com. This has been graded for NXT and 205 205 Live. You can follow me on Twitter here. You can follow all of us at Cultaholic. If you like what we do here at Cultaholic, you can check us out on Patreon. That's patreon.com/Cultaholic. And no matter what you do, don't ever forget to hit subscribe and join us.